Islamic accounting and principles of conventional accounting. And where lies the difference? Or in other sense, we can raise a question in the manner that what is the correct approach to decide about principles for Islamic transactions, principles for recording and summarizing the Islamic transactions. There are two approaches in it. Whenever, and this pertains in general to the understanding of Sharia. So we have to have a background of the Sharia to understand this. Whether something is allowed or not, how you determine that in Sharia? Anybody? Yes, any one of you? So the simplest approach, or rather I should say the justified approach, is that first of all, the item for which you are searching an answer, the argument should go against it. That for something to be not allowed as per Sharia, it should be exclusively mentioned. And all things point towards the non-usage or non-applicability of those things. For example, you are searching for X, whether X is allowed or not. So the first approach is that you should be able to get an exclusive answer from the text and the context of the Sharia that it is not allowed. Ambiguity in case where it is not clear whether it is allowed or not allowed will go in favor of that it is allowed. I am talking about Sharia. I am not talking about being cautious. That is a different thing. Your own understanding, your own likes and dislikes. I am not talking about that. So उसको गर्म पानी भिजवा दे, वो ले लो बॉटल. Everybody is getting? So the important thing is that if exclusively it is mentioned that these things are not to be done or X is not allowed, then there is no second thought about it. Obviously, overall, there are certain assumptions for the Sharia to work. If those assumptions are not valid, then there is a different scenario. For example, for Sharia to work, the assumption is that a very abnormal kind of situation would not be there. So, for example, if it is a life-threatening situation, then the general principles of Sharia may not work for you, and that's why what is allowed and what is not allowed, there is no thin line there, and then it is up to you for your survival. You can take any path. So leave aside those abnormal or rare situations, but apart from that, in rest of the situations, you know that it is important to understand that the correct the approach is that there should be exclusivity when we are searching for something to be not allowed. However, apart from that, whatever is there is per se, means basically it is allowed. By basic, when basically it is allowed, it means that we can move on with those things. Now, if we take the case of transactions, financial transactions, Whether they are Islamic or they are not Islamic, that question we will take up later on. But if we take the case of financial transactions, then we know that we do not have in Islam any specific methodology or technique to record things. There is no specific methodology and technique device to record this. The accounting principles that are prevalent today, they were formulated in 15th century. Before that also accounting system was there, but it was more of a system where cash transactions or transactions, it was more of a settlement account which was maintained. Therefore, principles were not argued upon. There were no conventions. But now we have an accounting system which is a formulated accounting system with principles, conventions, techniques, methodology, methods, etc. And if we see, we do not specifically have any such methodology and technique device. Because at that time there was no requirement of complex systems. Systems were simple. Recording was one-sided, simple recording was there. Okay, it has been given to us, and that is recording is since the existence of humankind, recording of transactions is already there. Yes, Quran says that you should record transaction if you have the ability to do that. So the general principles of accountability also apply in accounting. So if we see the current scenario of accounting systems, per se, there is no objection from an Islamic point of view to that. The objection is with the treatment of certain elements. And if you read the principles of accounting, even the conventional accounting, the principles of conventional accounting, they are as good as the principle of Islamic economics. Why? For example, we have a principle that is business entity concept, which means that business is separate from the human being when it comes to recording. So nobody can argue that it is a principle which goes against Islamic teachings or practices, because there is nothing as such. Rather, the benefit of separating the individual with the business entity is good for administrative purposes. For the statecraft itself, it is very important. So in that kind of scenario, it should be taken due care of. Everybody is getting?
Yes, sir.
How many of you are from commerce background?
Sir, I am.
Who are you? What is your name?
Abdul Ahad.
Abdullah. Oh, okay. Abdullah is there. Okay. I think I have taught you.
Yes, sir, you have taught me in BCom.
Okay.
I'm also from commerce background, sir.
Acha. Kashish Akbar. Okay.
Sir, I remember you took the Viva in the final year of BCom. I think you're from commerce department, if I remember.
Yes, yes, I am from commerce.
I remember you took my Viva and when there was they were held online.
Okay. So those who are from accounting background, and even if you are not, you have studied accounting in your first semester in management department. So if you you already know there are 7-8 principles of accounting. The business entity concept, the going concern concept, the historical cost concept, money measurement, revenue recognition concept is there. So all these concepts, accrual concept is there. If you study all these concepts, then you will not find any objection of Islamic transactions to these principles. Well, these principles are highlighting a reality. The objection is through to certain treatment of the certain elements, whether they should be accepted or not, and how they should be treated. There are two sets of scholars, or yes, scholars, and they devise two different methodology. One is that you should try to read at the and deliberate upon the Islamic literature. When we say Islamic literature, you already have studied more. We give the legal credibility and recognition to the Sharia, which and the sources of Sharia are Quran, Sunnah, and Ijtihad and Ijma. These are the sources. But two are the primary sources. Ijtihad and Ijma is something which just pushes things, but it cannot devise things. So these are the foundations. So they say that one method is that you try to deliberate upon the literature of Islam, the sources of the Sharia, and through that literature, you try to derive the principles, which in turn may guide you to record transactions properly. Just a minute. Okay. So we will continue. There is an urgent meeting in which I have to go. So we'll be continuing tomorrow. And you all have seen the book? Yes, every one of you. आप लोगों ने बुक देख ली?
Sir, which book?
Yes, sir. Which book?
Book for Islamic accounting. I have posted in the Google Classroom.
Sir, we didn't get the link for the Google Classroom.
Yes, sir.
So can
We
you
have seen
please,
it, sir.
please just reshare it so we can look the book and we can also log into that.
Okay. Okay. So I will reshare it. And what about and you go through the content of the book, because that book will be following for our discussion. Okay. All the discussions, and you can refer there. And apart from that, all sessionals and everything that we are going to have, also you can refer to that book. Okay.
Okay, sir.
And you all have the syllabus also?
No, sir, we don't have the syllabus. Can you please also send that?
Okay, I will send the syllabus also. Okay. So we will continue tomorrow.